Okay, I'm gonna introduce you now for real. Okay. There are certain people you meet and immediately feel like you're picking up a conversation that's been happening for years. Erin is one of those people for me. I'm convinced truly that we must have known each other in every single lifetime. We met at SOCAP last fall in San Francisco, and within minutes, it felt less like an introduction and more like a reunion. What followed was exactly what you'd expect when this happens. Messages flying back and forth, numbers exchanged, and this rhythm of discovery where every new detail was met with some version of course you do that. Of course you care about that. Of course you built something around that. Erin has this rare way of making people feel like they belong, not in a performative sense, but in a deeply lived one. You feel it in how she listens, how she connects ideas, how she brings people into something larger than themselves. It's not surprising, then, that her work has consistently lived at the intersection of impact, strategy, and human connection. From leading large-scale education and philanthropic initiatives serving tens of thousands to shaping communications and storytelling around social impact and investing, she has built a career around helping people and institutions move with purpose. Then there's this thing called the Friend Fix, which, whether it officially launched in summer of 2025 or before, Instagram is not a reliable historian, and that's what I checked, feels like the most natural extension of who she is. It exists to help women build deeper friendships and more meaningful connections, but more than that, it reflects someone who takes community seriously, someone who doesn't just talk about belonging, but actively creates the conditions for it. I'm incredibly grateful for the friend Erin is to me and to so many others, and it felt only right that as we begin this conversation about community, we start with someone who embodies it so fully. Erin, I'm so glad you're here.
I'm going to cry. What the heck? Why would you? Why? Stop that. That was so kind.
That's who you are. So thanks for being that person.
You ever met someone where like they'll do anything to make anybody else believe in themselves, but then the second you try to turn it back on them, they're like,
yeah,
she's me.
Yeah, she is you. She is you. I recognize 100%. That in you entirely. Yeah, I do. Mm-hmm. So we're going to ask you questions, because if I let you sit here and talk, you're just going to talk about how none of that is real and it's actually all real. So moving right along, Erin.
Oh, I could tell you all kinds of intrusive thoughts, but let's focus on community today.
And you, the things we love about you. Erin, when people experience you, they often walk away feeling like they belong, sometimes in ways they didn't even realize that they needed. When did you first understand that connection was something you carried uniquely?
Wow. I want to say like I've never struggled to make friends, which sounds like one of those things that you can't really say because you sound like a prick, but I've just never struggled. And I think a lot of that is because of how I was raised and just like a ton of factors into the creation of who I was and what I experienced at a young age. But I've never struggled to do it, but I would say that I recognized it's not something that everyone has.
Yeah.
Probably like late high school, early college, it was beginning to crystallize in my mind. Yeah.
I feel like it's actually important to say, and like I'm very like 0% surprised that you're like honest, like, you know, it sounds like a thing a prick would say, but like also we know that there are people like that, but when everybody pretends like that's not true, it creates like a real lack of, like, I would say it hinders the building of community when I think you sense that some people are really good at that. And I'm like, no, I'm not good at that. And you're like,
it couldn't be me. No, of course not. Okay, well, how about actually you just like acknowledge that you do and then use it?
Like you can't use your powers for good if you don't acknowledge that they exist, is I feel like already like the conversation we're having.
Okay, right? Write that down.
Because I just feel like when we fold ourselves in half in spaces where we need to be our whole self, like everybody loses.
Correct.
Interesting. So, okay. All right, hold on. We're just okay. Do you remember a moment in your own life when you felt deeply in community? And can you tell us about what that felt like or what that was?
Gosh, I like don't even know how to narrow it down, actually. Um, I'm gonna just tell you my life story a little bit.
Great. I'd
Is
love
that
that.
cool? All right.
Yeah.
So I grew up overseas with a dad who was working for the State Department and a mom who also grew up in a military environment, um, was military herself, and so had lived all over, and was originally from North Carolina. And so Southern values were very deeply ingrained in that woman. There's also the context of my parents having converted to the LDS church, and community is extremely important. It's a huge tenet of that faith. And so living overseas, the church system became kind of a default. But then in addition to that, there was a whole expat community. Like we lived on a compound that was specifically foreign US government families.
Yeah.
And that community, even today, like expat communities are really bonded groups.
Yeah.
And so literally from infancy in Thailand and in Taiwan, I was experiencing that. And in addition, within the context of a country where the collective and the community is much more prioritized than the individual.
Yeah.
And so all of those things kind of come together, and like my mother could make friends with a tree. Like truly an inanimate object would be like, Karen's my best friend. Yeah, poor girl, that name association. But she loved to host. She would always want to gather and find a reason to celebrate and include everyone. And we used to have this, like, we were kind of mean about it as kids. We should have loved this about her instead of teased her about it. But we used to call her, like, we used to say, like, oh, mom's caught another one of her strays, you know, because she would always see a person who didn't have that. She would reach out. She would make them feel seen for probably the first time in years, and then sort of like rehab that person into more fully coming into themselves and be a resource for them. And I can't even count the amount of times we've had a person I have never met show up for dinner, and she's like, what do you mean? This is my good friend. I've mentioned them many times. And I'm like, okay.
We go way back, Erin.
Sorry, my bad. But it, like, just a consistent pattern of my mom and my dad truly being willing to always be generous with their time, with their money, with their resources to help other people. And then I would say, like, I was also a theater kid in high school. Let me tell you, those bonds are deep. No, but like, it wasn't really the stereotype of it, but there was definitely community within that, right? And going into college, I actually went to Brigham Young University Hawaii campus, which is, at the time, it was like maybe 10% of US domestic students were accepted to the university, because it's primarily focused on Asian and Pacific Islander communities and giving them the opportunity for a lower cost education that's still high quality.
Yeah.
So immediately I'm thrown into a campus. It's my first time ever living somewhere where I don't know a single soul. And I'm thrown into a campus that celebrates culture and celebrates community so much. Like, I know every college campus does it, but let me tell you, it's a whole different ballgame at BYU Hawaii. So then I went on an LDS mission, and let me tell you, the bonds they're intense. Like, 4 of my closest friends to this day are people I met during that mission.
Yeah.
And I have always, in particular with women, I've always been able to feel it and create it anywhere. Any job, I've never struggled to make friends. Any roommate situation, whether we loved or tolerated each other, there was never like drama so bad that it affected life. Like, my opinion has always just been, you're who you are and I'm who I am, and we'll make it work, you know? I don't know if that like fully answers your question, but I can't really think of a time I haven't felt in community.
Yeah.
Just kidding. I just thought of one.
Oh.
Well, maybe like doctor this part a little more. Toward the end of undergrad, I married into a local Hawaii family. They were not Native Hawaiian, but my ex-husband was born and raised in Hawaii, which is a very, very unique and community-based culture. His mother is from Guam. She's indigenous to Guam. And his father is a Fiji-born Indian. So Pacific Islanders, not Native Hawaiian, but with the addition of the Hawaiian culture.
Yeah.
And being married to him for 7 years and being included and incorporated into that family, it was another iteration of, we have an open door policy to anyone who needs help. We have Sunday dinners where random students who we just feel a little nudge internally that they might need some help get invited over for Sunday dinner and then become a part of the family and visit 10 years later when they're on vacation in Hawaii, you know? So, and I mean, post-divorce, I still love and am close with his family, and I love that part of it, and I want to continue to foster that in my daughter as well. And I just, like, the only time I didn't feel in community was the part of my life, like, where during that marriage, I was doing a lot of self-abandonment. And, sorry. Oh, you're okay. Do you need to pause?
No.
Okay. So during my marriage, I did, maybe, I don't know if we should include this, but during my marriage, I did a lot of self-abandoning, a lot of people pleasing. And I'm not like at all trying to paint my ex-husband as like some villainous person for whom I had to bend over backwards, but like just a consistent, like, well, okay, this is a new experience. I'm not quite sure how to go about it. So I'm going to be accommodating little by little by little, a death by 1,000 cuts. I really lost tethers to my closest friends, to my family, and I lost my tether to myself.
Yep.
And I think that was the defining factor in why I couldn't like find my bearings. Because when I was connected to myself, I had no problem connecting to other people.
Well, and I think I love the order in which you told this story, because I think like you give us this picture of like a life full of seeing people as people. And like, and that being true to who you are. And I do think like, I think this is actually a really important part of the conversation, because I think the places where we lose ourselves, that can be a family of origin, that can be a significant other, that can be a best friend, that can be a job, that can be so many things,
different things.
And I think like what you're kind of showing and illustrating is like, we are made for connection, but we can make decisions that really hinder that.
100%.
And
if we get too focused and lost in one connection, we lose what grounds us to the others.
Well, and I think even like, and this is why I'm so glad you like told this story, because like you hear it in your voice, like the drama thing, and you know, where you are with this family or that family or this thing or that thing, and like the connections are so deep, and the people you went on mission with and roommates, and even in all of those contexts, your tone does not change. Like, I'm a person, I know who I am, I know what I'm good at. And I think like there is we have an obligation to ourselves to be in spaces where we can be ourselves. And I think sometimes there are these cultural expectations or connotations of like,
100%.
Hey, new wife, hey, new employee, hey, new leader, hey, new to the community, new to the run club, new to the book club, where you're like, who am I supposed to be in this space? And like,
exactly.
The person, I talked to somebody yesterday, and we were talking about leadership, and she was talking about, you know, she started a role, and like 6 months in, she was like, I don't think I'm doing a good job at this. And she sketched out like, okay, what do I think the person who would be good in this role looks like? And she was like, well, first of all, it's a man. And he's old and wise and has a beard and one of those, you know, jackets with elbow patches. And she was like, oh, like I actually am good at my job. I have the wrong connotation for who I'm supposed to be in this space.
Yes.
And I feel like that conversation blends with this one in such an important way that like you are supposed to be you
That's it.
wherever you are in every relationship, in every context. And if it's not the right, if it doesn't feel right, it might not be your space. And that's okay. You've learned and you can move on.
And that's not always an easy thing to learn. Like,
No.
I think more often than not, you've got to go through it to realize it. And that's painful. It's uncomfortable. Sometimes it's a long time. But really the payoff of understanding that contrast between when you are showing up as yourself and when you're showing up in a way you think you should for some external reason or pressure, you would never choose to go back to that.
Yeah.
Once you realize how much better it is to just be yourself and be okay with the things that stay or fall away.
And I think there is like, you don't know you're betraying yourself if you don't know fully who you're supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think I would be curious to know your thoughts on this. Like, I am different than I was 20 years ago.
Oh, 100%.
And so like yourself is an evolving reality. And so even if you were in a space where you could be you,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I think about like every super ridiculous illustration of like whatever crustacean doesn't outgrow its shell, so it has to go find a new one.
Mm-hmm.
Like we are not like, I love that we use that illustration like, ha ha ha, silly crustacean. Like we are the same. Like we are so not smarter than that.
Mm-hmm. I think sometimes we're a little too hard on ourselves when we start to realize that the person we are at this point is not the person we were when this felt right.
Yeah.
And we, for whatever reason, internal or external, we can start to see it as like, well, but if this thing is objectively good and was objectively good, then is my transformation bad?
Ooh.
I think a lot of people navigate that when they go through a faith crisis. A lot of people do that when they realize that their family members, like their family of origin, is not a healthy space to be for them. These things that, you know, society tells us are so important and so vital and correct. And like, you should love your family. You should be close with your parents and siblings. For a person who doesn't feel that, that's so unbelievably difficult and makes finding a chosen family feel like such a fresh air, like breath of fresh air.
Yep.
You know, I've always been a proponent of chosen family because of the expat experience, because like we had those constraints. We weren't around family ever.
Mm-hmm.
But I really recognize that having to consciously choose to separate yourself from that rather than it being an inherent part of circumstance is really hard. And so if it takes us longer than we want it to decide to leave a space or decide to embrace who we've evolved to become, I think that's okay. Like,
yeah,
progress, not perfection. You know, it just baby steps toward who you want to be and baby steps toward valuing that, rather than an expectation that the second you realize something might be off, you have to commit to something else. This is the first time you're experiencing yourself as this version of you. So be patient with them.
Yeah. And like what that looks like is grace, right? And I think about like, I would give you grace. Why can't I give it to myself? And like that we do have to tell ourselves. And like, I think this is in so many senses, like literally why Real Talk exists. Like we moved, we didn't live overseas, but both Patrick and my families are wholly in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And we moved to Florida in 2016. We moved to Utah in 2020. We moved to Fargo in 2023. It is not 2030. Holy cow. But like, yeah, like if we're not going to go home for every 4th of July, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, birthday, reunion, anniversary, like You think about that first time that you're like, what do I do in this space?
Mhm.
And I think there is so much of a narrative pressure that like this Hallmark Christmas movie says that this
Mhm.
is what your holiday should feel like. And if that were true, it would not be the most depressed day of the year for like a huge percentage of people.
Mhm.
And so I think that we have to combat the narrative pressure of our current existence. And I think we only do that in community when I can say,
Agreed.
I know Erin and Erin did this and I can do this too.
Mhm.
Like the story has to get broader so we can find ourselves in it, I think.
100%. You don't find yourself in an echo chamber. It's just not like that's not possible. Growth in an echo chamber is inherently not going to happen. An echo chamber only echoes because it's finite. You cannot expand in an echo chamber. You need to be able to see other perspectives, see other experiences, and be validated. There is nothing wrong with wanting community and friends and family solely for the purpose of providing validation and reassurance. We all need that. Like, as
Yeah.
long as you're willing to give it and you're going to be the villager just as much as you want to have a village, great. Don't feel like you can't just acknowledge that you need things from other people.
Yeah, and like this is why you're the first one on community.
I
Because
am.
yeah, you're the beginning of this pillar.
Oh my
Your
God.
it's episode 1 of the third thing,
Okay.
I guess.
Love.
But it's you. And like because what I hear and what I have heard in the mentorship and the leadership conversations are like, we need each other, and how do you build trust, and how do you start conversations, and how do you become comfortable with change? Like none of those things, to your point, you don't find yourself in an echo chamber. Change doesn't happen in an echo chamber. An echo chamber is wholly finite. The only way you actually can be healthy and flourishing and thriving is in connection with each other.
Mhm.
And like I did not think about this last night, which maybe makes me an idiot, but I was at a mentoring event for the NDSU College of Business yesterday, and we had a speaker who was talking about values. And we had to write 3 values, then we had to like walk around the room and find people who had the closest values to us. And a friend came up to me and said, I think community might be a really important value, but like, what does it mean?
Mm.
And so I am going to ask you, Erin, like, what does community, if someone is like, and she's like, a lot of people have community as a value. I think that's really cool. What does that mean?
Mhm. I would say mutually supportive connection, because like community itself is like we think of it as a specific thing, or maybe this is just me, but like I can picture it in my mind and it's always a group of people, right? But you can also be in a group of people and not be a community.
Mm-hmm.
It's only a community when there's connection between the people in that space or that group. And again, like you can't have a village without being a villager, right? You have to contribute to connection to receive connection. And I think a lot of people who feel like they don't have community, listen, we like I'm not trying to judge, but sometimes we just need to get off our ass and do the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes you need to be the person to reach out.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you need to be the person who's willing to be vulnerable and say, I think you're cool. I'd like to be your friend.
Yeah.
Like it's hard. It's like, but it's riding a bike or building a muscle. Like just keep practicing. You'll get there. And along the way, you're going to find people that incrementally make it easier for you.
Well, and like I want to go back to something you said early kind of in your story, because you said something like, this could have a negative connotation to it or whatever, but like, collecting strays. And I'll be
Mm,
honest with you, I think a lot of people would identify as strays.
yeah.
I actually think that we're doing a disservice to the function of building community by acting like everybody has it. Some
Mhm,
people are stray. They are apart from a whole, and they
mhm,
feel it and they know it and they don't they need they needed your mom, they need you, they need the people to say, come over for dinner, and find yourself here. And I think that, like, again, the narrative pressure of everyone's in a nuclear unit. No, they're not. Like, the data literally cannot support that less.
Exactly.
And this is where, like, community, like, this is real community. Like, this is not like performative community. And I think, like, the other thing that you said that stuck out to me was, like, you talked about theater. And, like, that's a vulnerable space because you are you are aware of your body and your voice and your presence, and, like,
and everyone is watching you do this thing that you haven't perfected yet.
Right. Like, that's hard. And, like, I have a friend, Leah, who you would love, who talked a lot about, like, when she was in graphic design school, like, they would rip your work apart and you had to, like, take it and do it and deal with it. And, like, there are these spaces that are viscerally vulnerable. And in that space, connection thrives because it's an honest space. And so I think there is a little bit of a disclaimer to someone who's talking about community, but you feel like you have to perform a personality or something to be in that space. Like, that is not what we're talking about.
No. And, listen, times and phases, right? Like, if there's a time in your life where that's all you've got the energy to do, then, like, better than nothing, I guess. But yeah, like, the vulnerability required to feel genuine connection instead of performative connection, it's scary. It's hard. Like, I've been in, the theater thing. I would try being an English major where you're taking a creative writing class and everybody's critiquing each other's writing. And you're like, I don't actually know if I'm like, I idolize this person, but I hate this person's piece of writing. So who cares what they say? Like, you got to stay tapped to your internal person. And I think everybody's in, like, an evolution of how true to themselves they can be in any given moment, because, like, sometimes it's kind of like being single versus relationships, right? Like, sometimes people compromise on what they want because they fear that if they don't, they'll just be single forever. And that happens in community too. That happens in jobs. It happens in friendships. It happens in families. We have this idea that, like, well, the thing that I am too scared to go for could be worse than this, or could just never happen if I let go of this. So I don't think it's so binary. It's not black and white, right? We all have to do what we can in the moment. But yeah, like, if you want to reach the pinnacle of feeling connected and in community, like I
love that. I love that.
You've got to learn who you are. You've got to be okay with who you are. Like, I don't think people realize, we talk a lot about the effort it takes in a relationship to build community, like whether that's romantic, an employee, a friendship, whatever. We don't talk as much about the internal work that has to happen to be ready for community. Community takes work and it takes self-refinement. Sometimes the feedback you get from a boss or a friend or a mother is not the favorite thing you've ever heard. And you have to know and get to a place where you can understand, do I agree with that feedback? Maybe do I have blind spots that I need to consider that feedback? Yeah, I don't know. I kind of lost my train of thought there, but yeah, there's so much internal work that has to be done. And I don't want to say that in a way that, like, adds this element of burden to it. Like, it's not just one more thing you have to do, but, like, it's a recognition that the more you do it, the more fulfilling community can become.
Well, and I think, like, I love the disparity between, like, hard is not the same as complicated. And sometimes hard is sitting with why that feedback or that comment was so upsetting to you.
Yeah.
Are we denying our fear of abandonment? Are we denying our need to perform because we think that's how we earn love. Like, again,
Mhm.
that is not necessarily complicated work. It is hard work.
Mhm.
You know, we all have trauma. um, Community is wonderful. It's made of people who are as wounded as we all are.
Yes, correct.
And I think that there is, like, your point about just, you know, are we comfortable with ourselves
Mhm.
requires, like, you know, a thing many people really loathe, which is like being
Yourself.
silent, not
He's
not
good. Yeah.
not picking up your phone, not, you know, sometimes it is easier to text a friend and make plans instead of sitting with why your day at work was hard.
Have you been talking to my therapist or something? Get out of here. What?
We like I love that, like, you know, you have a child and they're like, your child has to learn how to self-soothe. Like, we all learned how to self-soothe and we all do it. It just looks very different now than it did when I was 9 months old.
Mhm.
Um, and so I do think, like, one of my favorite things to tell anybody who will listen is, like, you know, people can only meet you as deeply as they've met themselves.
Mhm.
And if that is true, and I think this ties into, like, being a good neighbor, being, you know, if you want to have a neighbor, you got to be a neighbor, like, then it requires the work of, like, why do I feel like this person is, like, so wonderful? Like, well, they've probably done
Mm.
the work. They have room for what you have because they know who they are and they know what they can give and they know where they've been and they know where they're going. And, like, you know, that could sound a lot like competence. And that's not even what I'm saying. I'm saying,
Mm.
like, comfort with who they are and whatever that journey looks like. And so I
Mhm.
do think that a part of community is, and again, I appreciated you calling out that, like, this isn't just another thing, this isn't another burden, but it is the work.
Mhm.
And the work is the thing that does improve our personal relationships, our professional relationships, our romantic relationships, our familial relationships, like,
Totally.
how we manage ourselves, learn ourselves, know ourselves is a part of this piece of community.
100%. Because how can you build the community that's going to fill your cup without knowing what your cup needs in it? Like, I don't put tea in my cup. No thanks. It's Coke Zero or juice or I don't know, a bunch of other things, but not, I don't like a hot drink. I don't know. I'm weird, but like, so my cup isn't going to get full. Even if my cup is full, if it's full of the wrong thing, I'm still not going to want that cup.
Yep.
So
Yes.
what benefit does it even
Yes.
provide?
There's, like, a whole illustration framework here that you're building that I'm really obsessed with, which is, like, what is filling your cup and why is it not your thing? Because you didn't, maybe, like, maybe when we
Love that.
show up, the cup we put out is performative. And so if it's a really fancy teacup, someone's going to pour hot tea into that cup. Because that's the cup you put out, whether it's yours or not. Like, I'll be honest with you,
That's
it's not the cup that's right here next to me. Oh, hold on,
Mhm.
hold on, hold on. This is important. Guys, this is related. Okay. Because how dare I say it's my cup and then not have it? Okay, these are my favorite cups. This is from the Bison Turf, and it's my favorite bar in town. And this is from Mug Night,
amazing.
except you can buy them, and they are my family's, like, normative drinking cups because I love them, and they come in different colors and they have handles and whatever. This is my cup. This is what my cup shows up as. And when I walk into the Turf, it is either an unsweet tea or a vodka tonic, and they know that. They also know I don't want onions in my salad, because I
Because
can
you
show
build
up in that
community there.
space. Yes. And, like, we can laugh about it all day. I'm so serious. If you are performing in a space, your cup is misleading, maybe.
This thermosy Yeti tumbler is in fact not full of coffee, as one might think. It is in fact strawberry lemonade.
I love that.
Yeah, which, listen, I really like that visual and that concept. I think that's so true. But then on the flip side of it is like, are we making too many assumptions about that cup and what it can contain, right? Like, especially when we assume things about other people, we're just fully denying ourselves the opportunity to learn something about ourselves, to learn
Mhm,
something about them,
mhm.
and for a really awesome dynamic.
Yep.
Like, how many times have you dismissed someone who, by circumstance or proximity, you have continue to have to be around, and then you realize, oh, wait a minute. Okay, well, maybe I should have given them a little bit more grace at the beginning, you know?
It's real. And like, I will add, like, this is from Mug Night, and it says nothing like a cold beer after a nice cold beer. Want to know what is never in my mug? Beer. I'm not a beer drinker.
Yeah.
So I think that point is completely legitimate. Like, we like don't perform your cup, but don't presume someone else's either.
Yes, because I think the thing is, like, we're only responsible for our own. I love this metaphor. We're only responsible for our own cup, right? And if we want people to see and clearly understand and put together who we are and what we look to receive, we better show up as the cup that demonstrates that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not going to show up as a teacup. I don't know what I'm showing up. Probably like a homemade mug from Color Me Mine. Like,
love.
Yeah, that has like a book quote on it. You know, I don't know. Like, I have one actually. I just made it. I should go get it for you, but it's fine. It'll take too long.
You're not going to cause a scene like I did? Weird.
No, okay. Of course not. Because Zoom. I can't show my lower half right now. No, but I think, yeah, like, again, it just keeps going back to like, well, what work are you willing to put in? Like, am I just going to find the closest cup that's around and be like, well, someone will fill it?
Yeah.
Okay. Or am I going to put intention in and be like, well, these are the results I want. And in order to get those results, I have to show up in this way. And here's how I can do that.
Well, and I think, like, community is built on connections. And when you can connect with somebody, you might learn that, like, I'm not a teacup person, but I have a teacup friend and I really appreciate her. So the next time I see a teacup, I actually am probably not going to just judge what that looks like, because my teacup friend is really great. And so maybe you are too. And like, I do think there is this, like, there is a required openness that, like, I'm a huge, like, I was a real serious bandwagon Ted Lasso fan. And like, you got to be curious, not judgmental. And like, and I, when I first heard that, I was like, yeah, obviously, like, I'm not judging you. And like, when I think about what that really means is, I'm not rushing to a judgment about you. I am curious about who you are. What's in your teacup? I'm not saying that's a teacup. Like, and I also appreciate that this is a Ted Lasso analogy, because he hates tea. And like, that's a recurring theme throughout that show. He's like, oh, brown water. I don't want that. Like, I have an acquired taste for that. But like, we need to be curious about ourselves and curious about other people. And like, that is a solution to that hang up of like, how do I enter this space? Like, curious. Erin, I really like your sweater.
Thank
you.
Tell
me something about that sweater. Like, we're going to have a conversation about it, right?
Actually, I'm going to interject, because my number one thing that I always go back to, and like, well, like, what first step could I take to build community or like make a connection if I'm in a place where I know no one and I'm feeling nervous to put myself out there? Compliment someone. It's the fastest way to build rapport. Yeah. Everyone wants to be complimented. I had a professor in undergrad who was kind of waxed poetic about how, why would you ever keep a positive thing about someone else to yourself? Yes. Like, if you have a positive thing to say, tell them. Yep. It helps them and it helps you. And there's literally no reason to keep it inside.
Well, and I would argue it helps everyone around you. Like, when you can show someone that you walked into this room and you complimented someone on their pen, nails, shoes, bag, hair, eyes, pick literally anything. And then and then they're like, oh, thanks, I got it at wherever. Oh, I've been there. I love their blank. Yeah, I do that thing with this group of people. Like, it is one of the best ways to illustrate how connection can be formed, because it's social.
Yes. And how many different points of connection can exist. Like, I can compliment the things on your shelf behind you. I can say, oh my gosh, I love that game. I can say, stop, where'd you get your nails done? They're so cute. I can, like, there are infinite ways to come up with just a quick compliment that can springboard into further connection. Yeah. And it could happen about literally so many different things. Yeah. And so we walk around sort of oblivious to just how similar we all are. And how many people we could develop community with, just because we don't spend the time to consciously ponder it, you know?
Yes. And I'm going to add one more that I think gets criticized a lot, but can be an easy access point. Like yesterday, it was 80-ish degrees. Today, it was 30 degrees. And I knew that was going to happen. And so somebody, came through the office this week and was like, "Oh, it's so nice out." I was like, "It is so nice out." And I'm really just trying to emotionally prepare myself for when that is not true on Friday, because I don't always handle that well. Like, I'm not like, "Oh, it's sunny." Like, I'm not saying like make trite comments about the weather, but we're all existing in this space. Um, and so if you can be human about the things around you, don't let someone tell you that talking about the weather is the worst thing to do. I'm not saying build a relationship out of commenting on the weather daily. It should evolve. What we're talking about are access points.
Yep, exactly. Like, an initiation point is not the trajectory. Like, where you start is not where you're going to end up. You got to pick something to start and then see where it goes. Like, if you comment about the weather with a coworker, who knows? In 6 months, maybe you guys have rapport and go out for drinks sometime. Like,
and because it will go. And like, I was having some conversations a couple weeks ago and someone was like, "Oh, it's cold." I was like, "I live 300 miles south of Canada." Like, it's always cold. Like, I'm fine. It's fine. Like, "Oh, are you from there originally?" Like, "No, we're from Pittsburgh." Or like what we're talking about. And like, I do think this is kind of where we've, again, we are so not meant to thrive sometimes, I think. So many of the things that we've heard about, like, "Oh, I hate small talk because I can't talk about the weather again." Like, those are supposed to be beginnings, not ends.
Yes. Small talk isn't the point. It's just the entryway. That's it.
That's it.
Like, okay. And I can respect that some people are at a point in life where they feel like, yeah, but let's just get to it. But I'm also like, okay, well, your chances of just randomly encountering somebody who's ready to be vulnerable with a complete stranger in the same way that you want to be is limited. And so if you want to hold fast to that, you go for it. But I think maybe you could like find some middle ground between small talk and, hey, let's trauma dump on each other.
And like, I will add, I'm going to come back to you. There are people who walk in that plane, and I will point to you and I. You and I found each other in this space, and we're like, "Hello, I think I've loved you my whole life." And like, but we have also done the work. But we are also willing to have the conversation about your skirt, your dress, your bag, your whatever, and get there, because getting there is worth it. And so I do think like that small talk leads to what we would normatively call building trust. And that is important. And so I do think because I think we have to talk about the perils of community too. And what you're hinting at is like, hey, you might want to watch out for that person who's like, "I don't do small talk." And whatever bomb they drop on that conversation, that they're like, "Well, I can only have conversations in these deep levels." Like, I'm going to be honest with you, you might have some work to do. And I don't say that critically or judgmentally. I'm sure we've actually all been in spaces, right? Like, but that does not signal safety to me. And I think we need to be honest about that.
Yeah, I think, like, without sounding too like trope-ish, or if that's a word, like,
I liked it.
It's like when you go on a date and a guy is like, "Oh, like, what books do you like to read?" And I'm gonna be like, "Smutty fantasy." And then he'll be like, "Oh, I only read classic literature or memoirs or whatever." And I'm like, "Okay, sucks to suck. See you later." Like, just, okay, well, cool. I'm happy for you, but I don't understand why you have to like come at it from this lens of like your approach to everything is superior. Like, I think that's the feeling of a lot of people who say, "I don't want to do small talk. I want to jump in." It's not coming oftentimes it doesn't come across as like, "Hey, I'm eager for connection. I'm eager to get past the small talk stage." It comes across as, I have a lot of walls up and a lot of filters around who I think is worth my time.
Yes. And like what is I feel like what we're talking about in community and in connection and in relationship here, I want a platonic version of like love bombing. Like you're angling
You
in a
think that doesn't
way.
exist?
What is that?
It's like just love bombing, except with like platonic love.
Is
You
that
never
just the
seen
same thing?
that?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
a person who just becomes a little too obsessed and a little too clingy, a little too fast.
Yeah, and I do think
And
there's
like
a
you
red like
become their
there
whole world because
yeah.
you paid attention to them. And I mean, I think everybody's done it a little bit. Like, oh my gosh, obsessed with her. Or like, oh my gosh, that person is so smart. I really want to be friends with them. Like,
I met
cool.
her last week and we're best friends.
And like, listen, sometimes it's real, okay, like us. But like, there's a difference between like we can instantly recognize the potential for that,
Yeah.
even though there is so much I don't know about you yet,
Yeah.
and vice versa. But like, we're not acting as though we do. And I think that's
Right.
the difference. Like
Yes.
in platonic love bombing, it's like, I feel the potential for something. And so I'm going to pretend it already exists and the foundation is already built.
Yeah, and you couldn't even tell me something about her. I know everything. Like,
Yeah.
I love that I don't know everything about you because we have a lifetime to
Yeah.
uncover those things, and it is like there is joy in that work. And I
Mm-hmm.
do think like that is kind of maybe we need to like reclaim the realities of the importance of small talk because small talk is where trust is built. Small talk is where you uncover, oh my gosh, me too. And like that is a beautiful thing. Why would you want to skip that?
I, I guess, I don't know if your question was rhetorical, but I think it's
What do you
worth
think?
noting that sometimes we want to skip it because it can be draining,
Mm,
right? Like, because I think of it as like, okay, I'm going to give like a vulnerability token to you in this moment. And then if it's not reciprocated, sometimes we're like, okay, well, I tried. And then we keep trying and we
mhm.
keep trying. And when it doesn't go anywhere, suddenly like our tokens are running low, you know? And if we haven't done other things to fill our cup in the meantime, like how do we regenerate the energy
Yeah.
required for that? Um, I think in making friends, in making connections at work, and in dating, like the amount of times you have to try and initiate
Mhm.
can get really hard. If you're getting the first interview at jobs over and over and over again, but it's never leading anywhere, that is so exhausting.
Yeah.
The same way that 1,000 first dates without any second dates sucks.
Yeah.
Like, we're wired for like I give and then you give. And there's a mutual back and forth of some kind, you know, like we're not like on a biological level, we are not solitary people. 100% introverts are introverts and extroverts are extroverts. And I understand not everybody thrives from like being around people, but that's not the same thing as wanting a solitary existence.
Yeah. And I think that's a really, really, really important clarification because what you and I are talking about is like when you know that like this is your friend and this small talk worked
Mm-hmm.
versus like moving or starting a new job or
Yes,
interviewing or going on
totally.
first dates and being like my collection is running low. And I think like the other thing like scarcity is a reality and the impacts of scarcity are real. That is true emotionally as much as it is in any other resource. And so I think it's important to acknowledge that when your tokens are running low, you're like, will they ever replenished?
Yes. Will they ever come
There
back?
is this fear that starts to build as with any other resource. And so I really,
Exactly.
really, really appreciate you calling that out because I think sometimes getting off the couch to do the next thing sometimes does feel like the actual hardest thing. And
Hmm.
like that is an understandable reality.
Yeah. I'm like, so I have compassion for it. Even me, who I don't think anybody who knows me ever would describe me as an introvert. Even I reach points where I'm like, okay, well, I'm a little like emotionally and physically and energetically drained from all of this. And now I need to go recover. So for some people, the recovery looks like alone time and that's enough to rebound. For other people, it's the reciprocation from another person.
Mhm.
And so it's just specific to what you as an individual need, which brings us back to like, you can't establish the full heights of a fulfilling community for yourself if you don't know yourself.
Yep. We're nearing the end of my allotted time, which is devastating to me because I could talk to you for the next 3 hours about this. But I had coffee with someone this week who talked about how like we're like half of a gate and we spend our life looking for the second half. And like when we find those people, we're like, yes. And I think what I would add to that and what you just said is like knowing you've met your match would require knowing who you are.
Yeah.
If you don't know what kind of gate you are,
Correct.
You know, and you think about even like I love when you can find physical analogies or illustrations to illustrate something. Like when a door doesn't fit right, it jams. When it jams, it wears. When it wears all of these things. Like that will wear on you.
Yep.
And that is an expense too.
Mm-hmm.
And that we, you know, I think about like the body keeps the score, right? Like the emotions, the connections, there's a score in all of these things that like when it's great, it's really great. And when it's hard repeatedly for a long time, it compounds. It isn't just like, yeah, it was another hard day. Like, no.
Yeah. It compounds in both directions, right? I mean, yeah, that's it. I don't have anything else insightful about that. It's
It just does.
when it's good, it can feel really good. And when it's hard, like it's brutal.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Life is highs and lows. It just is what it is.
And I do think, like, I'm going to come back to why we have these conversations. Like, sometimes you just need to hear someone say that. It won't always be low and it won't always be high. So if you're riding high, enjoy it. And if it's hard, keep going. And that means, and I do think like of every graph that's like, this is consistency. Like by doing whatever you did today, thank you for doing that thing. And thank you for trying again tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I love you.
I love you. Like big, like a lot.
Yeah, I love this for us.
Me too. Thank you for being someone who listens to the nudge to say the thing or to do the thing, because that's how this started, right? You came over and you complimented me. And it was a compliment that I so deeply needed to hear in that specific moment. And because it was that impactful is how I was so quickly drawn to, wait a minute, that needs to be my friend. You're staying in my life, actually. And not just because I need to receive from you, but because now that you have given me that gift, how can I give some of that to you?
Yeah. Y'all, we belong to each other. Take care of yourself, take care of each other. That's what we're doing here.
Yeah. And be patient about it. We're all on the journey. We're all growing. It takes time, but it's worth it.
And we have bad days, and that's okay. Yeah. People.
I've had weeks and years too sometimes, but it's okay.
Because you know what? Because we're all learning something, and that's okay. All right, Erin, I'm going to end this so I don't just keep talking. I appreciate you. Thank you for starting this conversation on community. You were absolutely the right person to start it with. It was great to see your face. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Thank you. This really picked up my week.
There's your face. Okay.
All right. Love you so much.
Bye, friend.